Good morning from Baltimore, Gigi. Good morning, everyone. I am Tina Swithin, author of Divorcing a Narcissist, founder of One Mom's Battle. And we are a community of survivors who come together and talk about child custody issues with narcissists or other toxic humans. And there are unfortunately a lot of them out there. I cannot give legal advice. Be sure you check with your attorney before you implement anything that you pick up here on our show or anywhere, really. They are your voice and advocate in the courtroom. Good morning, Dina. Gosh, lots going on. We just wrapped up our August course for the High Conflict Divorce Coach program, and we're in open enrollment for August. If you're interested, be sure to reach out. Send me an email, tina@hcdivorcecoach.com. Good morning, Alex. Today at 12:30 Pacific, what day is today? I have no idea what today is. Friday, July 16th. I'm going to be on Instagram Live with Dr. Scott Eilers, and his last name is spelled Eilers. So make sure you join his live at 12:30. We are going to talk. We're just going to talk for 30 minutes on his Instagram Live. So I'm excited about that. I love collaborating with mental health professionals because there's such a disconnect. The reality of the court system is that they lean on mental health professionals for input, a lot of times for guidance. And I find that a lot of mental health professionals, even the ones who really know and understand cluster B disorders, they don't have a good grasp on the reality of the family court system. And so it's such an important bridge to, connect for all of us. Good morning, Rebecca and Jenny. And so I love talking to, one example, my own therapist. Back in 2014, when I was finally able to secure absolute peace from my kids, but he still had legal custody of them. His parental rights weren't severed at that point. And I remember talking to my therapist and being so just excited for peace because he couldn't contact us, he couldn't see the girls. And she said, you need to delete your entire email account, because she knew there was an email account that I used to communicate with him, that I used for documentation. She was like, this is your fresh start, get rid of it all. Something told me do not do that. And thank God I didn't, because I ended up needing all of that documentation. He still had legal rights. And it just makes me cringe to think, there's my sister. Renee is driving from Idaho to California, so she's joining us. To think back that somebody who didn't understand the court system enough and really had grasped that I have complete peace, I can just delete all of this. It just makes me cringe. And so I really do, a lot to try to connect with domestic violence shelters, agencies, and therapists. So I'm excited about today. If you are in need of an online course for documentation, mediation, so much about this whole process is strategy. But when we're fueled by fear and, we don't understand the system that we're in, we can be fueled by emotions. And so switching to a strategy mindset can be critical. If you would like a code to save 20% off any of the courses, you can use OMB for One Mom's Battle. Thank you. And that'll give you 20% off any of the courses. So let's I want to dive into today's topics. I talk with my hands so much and I don't realize it till I can see myself in the calendar and the camera. I get this question a lot. I get a lot of comments from men who say, why don't you talk about women narcissists? Why don't, why isn't this a topic that you give advice on? I'm a woman. I went through a divorce with a man. And so that's my personal experience. And 99.9% of the clients that I have or the people who, engage in my social media, follow my work, are also women. Statistically speaking, this issue, narcissism, affects men more than it affects women. Those are facts. Women in the cluster B range tend to go more towards the borderline things that we see. And so my experience is as a woman. And I always share, my dad raised me, and I'm incredibly thankful for that. He was the healthier of my two parents, and that's always been part of my platform. But I will tell you, the more 12 years now I've been a part of this system, the more I tend to kind of say, you know what, my platform is moms. And I encourage people to go start their own platform. There needs to be more support for men who are going through these things. But, this is an issue in family court that affects mostly women. And while I have tried to stay so neutral over the years, I find myself going more and more in the moms are getting screwed in the system. I truly believe that. Back in the 70s and 80s, the pendulum or before that, the pendulum was swung so far into the favor of moms. And over the years, and I have my own opinions on why it happened, it is now much more in the parental rights. It's not about kids. It's not figuring out what is best for the child. It's really about parental rights. And most abusers fight for 50-50 just because it's a lower child support amount. It's a way to hurt their victim. And so I don't know if I'm making a statement or taking a public stance at this point, but I love some of the dads I work with, but I do tend to really, this is my platform. So I encourage you to start one if that is something that's near and dear to your heart and you have experience on it. We need more people sharing resources, sharing their experiences and their stories. So that is why. But, the reality is, no matter what type of cluster B you're dealing with, a lot of the strategies are the same. It doesn't really even have to be mom, dad, whatever. Cluster B is cluster B. And they're all using the same type of playbook. There's different variations to it. But at the end of the day, it's about strategy in family court. So that is my opinion. All right. Number 2, I am just starting the divorce process and I want sole legal custody. Do you have any tips? I feel that, first of all, every case is so different. There may be cases where there's proven domestic violence where you may be a candidate for 50-50 or for sole legal custody. And that is the reality. But what I will say is that I see so many people who they're so desperate to get that. And I understand why, but it's typically what I see, it's not realistic in the system. And most people do start out at 50-50 legal custody. I did. It very much falls into what I call the chip away mentality, where whatever your starting point is, okay, we're here and now. This is centered, if it's 50-50 to start with, I don't believe that is the end all be all. I believe that over time you can chip away at it. And in most cases, you're not going to get sole legal custody without solid proof of why. And a lot of people go into it very naive, myself included, where you say the other parent was never involved, never participated, never changed diapers, never went to school conferences. In the eyes of the court, that really doesn't seem to matter at all. In fact, if somebody has a pulse and they say, hey, you know what, I want to give this parenting thing a try, they're going to give them a standing ovation. And, I do believe some of that has to do with the system being just overwhelmed with deadbeat parents. So they want to give everybody an opportunity. There's so much research out there, which I don't agree with, that says two parents are better than one no matter what. And I don't think that's true. But that is the message that is beat into the court system. And so their threshold of what's acceptable is so much different than ours. And they give a lot of grace to unhealthy people when they shouldn't. Because again, it's, it comes down to parental rights and not what's best for kids. So for me, I can share my perspective. What I see so many others do is your starting point may be 50-50. That is the reality for most of us. But I don't think it's forever. I think you then go into documentation mode, strategy. If you're having a hard time getting into that strategy mindset and you want somebody to help you with that, I highly recommend a high conflict divorce coach. You can go to myhighconflictdivorcecoach.com to find someone. There's a map. You can find someone as close to your geographical area as possible, but really getting into that strategy mindset, learning how to document, learning how to present yourself in a way that puts you in a very positive light for the court. Because what a lot of people forget is that you've had this light bulb moment that this person is unhealthy. I remember when my therapist in 2008 said to me, he's a narcissist. And I was like, oh my God, this is it. This is what's been wrong with my marriage. This is, explains so much. I was so eager for other people to know that, to see who he was. But the reality is the court didn't know me. And for all the court knows, I could have been, an alcoholic, a pathological liar, all of these things. They don't know either of you. And you have to remember that just because you know who the other party is, the court is looking at everybody with a blank slate. And you have to show over time that you are the best co-parent that they've ever seen. And that's where so many of us make mistakes, because we learn about gray rock communication. Our therapists are telling us we have to have boundaries, and we put up boundaries, and then, which you can still have boundaries, but you have to be strategic about it. So many of us end up presenting as cold, uncompromising, rigid, and that is not what the court wants to see. And so working with a high conflict divorce coach or somebody that you trust that has a good grasp of the system and the reality of it can be really important. So, it took me 2 years to finally get sole legal custody. Mine was a series of showing dishonesty. He wasn't telling me where my daughters were. That's a fine line, because some judges just don't care. What happens on the other parent's parenting time is their business. Mine was kind of extreme in some areas, and I was able to show that there was safety concerns. He was making up addresses that didn't exist. I remember driving into a gated community to an address. I had to get a realtor to go with me to be able to see if this address really existed, and it was a big empty dirt lot. And so I was able, and he just assumed I would never be able to get into that gated community. But I'm a mama bear, so I don't really do well with that. And so I really worked hard to show the court who I was and who he was and what the issues were. And I remember the day that not only the judge, it was 2011, not only did the judge give me sole legal custody, he ended all overnight visits. And I still remember he said, Miss Swithin will now be able to go to sleep at night knowing where her children are, because they will be in their beds in her home. And I remember standing up, and I represented myself, so I didn't have an attorney, and going to walk out the door and turning around. And I had, when you're in that mode, you completely forget there's a whole audience of people staring at you and listening to everything about your life. And I just remember turning and walking to leave the courtroom, just tears streaming down my eyes. And there were people that were there was one lady, and she just looked at me and went like, amazing. And I just was like, it was an amazing day. But it can take a while to get there. You have to be strategic about it. And if you are one of the lucky rare unicorns of the court system who did get sole legal custody right out of the gate, there are still a few states that do that. But for the most part, you start at 50-50 and you work to get out from under that, because I don't believe it's in a child's best interest. Gigi, my ex does that, not sharing location during supervised parenting time, vacations, which you would think he would be even more accountable with supervised parenting time. But welcome to the family court system, where it is the Twilight Zone. That's is anyone following Custody Piece on Instagram? It's like the peace sign, Custody Piece. She's fantastic. And she just created a post the other day about, feeling like you're in the Twilight Zone. Only in family court in 2021, do they give more emphasis to parental rights than a child's safety. It's just, you feel like you are the unstable one, because how could all this be happening? And this is real life. You start to doubt yourself and question yourself. All right, third question. My child has food allergies, and my ex is constantly putting her at risk. The courts feel this isn't on purpose, but I believe it is. Why would he do this? So, like with anything, that is a big, big topic. Good morning, Tracy from Indiana and Kavina. So my personal opinion and what I've seen over the years, whenever a child has anything different, a learning disability, autism, any type of, it could be seizures, it could be food allergies. We have to remember, this is back to the strategic mindset and profiling the narcissist that you're up against. They see the child as an extension of themselves. They see the child as a possession. And for most of them, they want the best of the best. And so especially when it comes to their kids, if their child has anything that they deem to be different or unacceptable, they will exploit that in a variety of ways. They may target that child. That child probably will not be the golden child. They may be cruel to that child. They may silence that child. So this could fall into that category where he's actually angry about the child having something that's not typical or not normal. And it can be a sensitive topic for him, because how could someone from his perfect genetic pool have anything different or wrong? in his mind wrong. So that's a lot of what we typically see. And so is there a chance that he is being purposely, pointed about jeopardizing the child? Absolutely. I think it's actually a really prevalent issue, where they put them in danger. They fight for them, then they discard them, in a variety of ways. But, and so that it's hard to prove things like this when they happen behind closed doors. But I recently had a mom where she knew her ex had given her child something that they couldn't have. The child came home sick with a rash, it needed an EpiPen. And she actually went to the restaurant and wanted to see what he had ordered, to prove it. Because prior to that, so much of family court is your word against the other parties. And so then it's kind of, we have to think strategically and outside of the box. How do we prove these things? So, on the rare instance that something like this was actually in public, I suggested to her, you might want to try to get a subpoena to subpoena the receipt. If he's denying it and the restaurant has told you, no, this is what she ate, this is what she ordered, and we have the receipt to prove it, but we're not going to turn it over to you without a subpoena, that may be the way to go. I actually did that with my ex-husband because there was an order that he could not drink beer with my kids. And my daughter got in the car after his parenting time and said, Dad ordered a beer. He said it was a soda, but when the waitress set it down, she said, Sir, here's your beer. And so I got a PI to go in there, verify that, yes, he did order a couple of beers. And then we subpoenaed the restaurant manager to bring in the actual video of him drinking. So in my situation, the judge actually got to see him in chambers, view the video of my ex drinking with the kids. Plus we had the receipt to show it. So sometimes you have to get a little creative on proving these things, because half the battle in family court is that it's he said, she said, or she said, or he said, he said. But it's not what you know, it's what you can prove. With that said, all right, everyone, have a really, really great weekend. And I'm trying to read the comments. Her daughter has dyslexia. These things are, from a profiling the narcissist standpoint, they're fascinating to me, but it's heartbreaking when you're living this. And, we will see narcissists when there's medical opinions lodged heavily. This child has this diagnosis or that diagnosis. They will flat out deny it. They know more than the doctors. Yeah, absolutely. So take care, everyone. Happy Friday. Have a great weekend, and we will see you next Friday. Bye-bye.